The sun was slowly dropping behind the red mesas when Elijah Hart guided his horse across the open plains. The evening light painted the desert in warm colors, turning the rocks gold and the shadows purple. Elijah liked this time of day. The Mai world felt calm and quiet, as if even the wind paused to watch the sunset. Elijah Hart was not a loud man. He did not brag and he did not look for trouble. He worked a modest ranch near the edge of land where settlers and Apache families lived not far from one another. Some people liked to talk as if they owned the land. Elijah did not. He believed the earth belonged to everyone who treated it with respect. Because of that, some people found him unusual, but Elijah never changed his ways to please others. He carried rope, water, and tools wherever he rode, because in the open land one never knew what the day might bring. He had helped lost travelers, injured animals, and even once a wagon that had fallen apart on the trail. It simply felt right to help. His father had taught him that a person's worth was measured by what he did when no one was watching. Tamin. Evening breeze carried faint sounds from far away, and Elijah slowed his horse to listen. At first he thought he was hearing wind sliding through canyon stone. The canyons nearby often made sounds like distant voices. But then Elijah heard it again, clearer this time, crying. The sound was thin and frightened, not like an animal in pain. It was human. Elijah pulled the reins lightly and turned toward the canyon slopes. His horse, a calm chestnut mare named Willow, followed without hesitation. Elijah did not rush. In rocky country, hurrying could lead to a fall. He kept his eyes sharp, scanning the land. The sound grew louder as he approached the edge of a ravine that split the earth like a deep scar. A flash flood must have passed recently. He could see wet stones and broken brush along the canyon floor. Then he saw them. 2 girls, both young. No, older than 10 or 11, stood on a narrow ledge halfway down the canyon wall. They were pressed close to the rock, afraid to move. The path they had used to climb must have crumbled away in the flood. They were trapped. The girls were clearly Apache, dressed in woven garments with beads that caught the late sunlight. Elijah had seen some Apache families from a distance before, traveling or gathering herbs. But he had never seen these children. It did not matter. They were frightened, and the canyon offered no safe way down except from above. Elijah's breath slowed. Fear could make hands weak, and weak hands could get people hurt. He guided Willow to a sturdy juniper tree and tied her reins gently. Then he checked his rope, tugging hard to test its strength. The girls stared up at him. Their eyes were wide, full of fear. Elijah raised one hand slowly, his palm open, showing he meant no harm. He spoke in a calm voice, though he knew they might not understand his words. It did not matter. Calmness had its own language. "It's all right," he said softly. "I'm going to help you." He tied the rope around his waist and anchored the other end around the tree. Then he lowered himself carefully down the canyon wall, choosing each foothold slowly and carefully. Tiny stones broke loose beneath his boots, bouncing into the canyon below. The girls gasped, but Elijah did not lose his balance. He kept his movement steady. When he reached the ledge, the space was narrow. One quick or careless step could send all of them falling. So Elijah remained low, keeping his center of weight close to the rock. He offered a small, gentle smile to the children. Their fear softened, not completely, but enough. He pointed to himself and said, "Elijah." Then he pointed to them. They hesitated before the older girl spoke her name quietly. He nodded and repeated her name with care, making sure he said it correctly. That small act helped the girls relax further. Respect often opened doors that force never could. Now came the hard part, climbing back up with each child. Elijah knew he could not take both girls at once. The ledge was too small for that. So he gestured for the younger girl to come first. She trembled but stepped toward him. Elijah wrapped part of the rope around her waist, tying a simple but strong knot. He spoke softly to keep her calm while he prepared. The climb up felt longer than the climb down. Elijah leaned his weight into the rope, careful with every handhold. The girl held onto his shoulder, her breathing shaky. The canyon below them seemed to wait for mistakes, quiet and wide. but step by slow step, they climbed. When Elijah reached the top, he lifted the girl safely away from the canyon edge and helped her sit beside the juniper tree. Willow nuzzled her shoulder gently, which made the girl laugh through her tears. The sound was soft and small, like a bird's wing against the wind. Elijah wasted no time. He went back down for the second girl. This time, the climb was even harder. The sun had nearly set and the rock was cooling, which made it more slippery. His muscles burned and his hands ached. The girl clung to him with tightly clenched fingers. He spoke to her softly, not words of command, but words meant to help her stay brave. "We're going slow, you're doing well. Look at the next step, that's it, one more." When they reached the top, Elijah felt relief flood through him, not for himself, but for the children who were now safe. Both girls hugged each other tightly. They did not need to speak for him to understand how scared they had been. Night was settling quickly, and the desert cooled faster than most people expected. Elijah built a small fire near a rock wall that blocked the wind. The girls sat close to him. He offered them water and a bit of dried food. They accepted politely, still watching him carefully. They did not speak the same language, but they did not need to. Fear had changed into quiet trust. They were safe, and they knew he had cared for them gently. Elijah kept the fire going through the night, adding small pieces of wood. He sat awake while the girls slept. Coyotes called in the distance, but nothing came near the fire. When the first light of dawn touched the sky, movement appeared on the horizon. A group of Apache riders approached, moving with careful speed. They were searching for the girls. Elijah stood but did not step forward quickly. He kept his hands visible and calm. He knew misunderstandings could happen fast if someone felt threatened. The girls woke and ran toward the riders with joy in their steps. Relief and love filled the reunion. The riders checked the children, saw that they were unharmed, and then turned their attention to Elijah. He did not speak first. He waited. One of the riders nodded. Not a large gesture, not spoken words, just a nod. A clear sign of understanding and respect. Elijah nodded back with equal calm. There was no loud praise, no dramatic handshake, no cheering. Just 3 simple truths. The children were alive. They had been treated with care. Trust had been shown. Elijah mounted Willow and began his quiet ride home. He believed the moment was complete. He had helped, and that was enough. He did not expect anything more to come from it. But the desert remembers kindness, even when people do not speak of it. And the next day would bring something he could never have predicted. The next morning began quietly for Elijah Hart. The sun rose soft and golden over the horizon, warming the land slowly. Elijah stepped out of his small cabin and stretched his shoulders. He heard birds calling near the riverbed and the soft sound of his horse, Willow, moving in the corral. It seemed like just another day, and Elijah believed the events of yesterday were now behind him. He fed Willow some hay and checked her hooves carefully. He always treated animals kindly, because he believed anything that lived deserved care. After that, he started repairing one of his fences. A strong wind had blown it loose the night before, and he wanted to fix it before any animals wandered off. He worked calmly, without hurry. The morning air was cool and clear. While Elijah worked, he noticed something unusual in the distance. Dust rose in a thin cloud, too steady to be wind. Someone was riding toward his ranch. Elijah paused and shaded his eyes with his hand. The desert stretched far across the plains, and travelers could be seen long before they arrived. The figures grew clearer as they approached. There were 3 riders. At the front rode a woman dressed in carefully beaded clothing, the designs thoughtful and beautiful. Her posture was strong and calm, showing dignity. Beside her rode the 2 young girls Elijah had rescued. They recognized him even from far away and lifted their hands in greeting. Elijah felt something warm in his chest at the sight. The girls looked healthy and cheerful now. Their fear was gone. Behind them came one more rider, possibly a relative or protector, though his presence felt peaceful rather than tense. Elijah stepped away from the fence and wiped his hands. He did not rush forward, and he did not reach for any tool or weapon. He simply waited and let them come to him. He understood that respect often began with patience. The group stopped a short distance from him. The woman dismounted gracefully, and the girls slid off their horses with bright smiles. The older girl pointed to Elijah and spoke something quickly to her mother. The woman listened, then turned to Elijah. At first it was quiet. The desert around them held the silence gently. Then the woman spoke in clear, careful English, choosing each word with care. "My name is Aponi," she said. "These are my daughters. They told me how you saved them when they were trapped." Elijah nodded once, polite and calm. Aponi's eyes were steady. There was no fear in them, only deep gratitude. "You stayed with them," she continued. "You shared your fire. You kept them safe through the night. This is something I do not forget." The two girls were smiling now, their eyes full of trust. They stood close to their mother, but also near Elijah, as if they believed he was a safe place in the world. Elijah spoke softly. "I was glad to help. Anyone would have done the same." Aponi shook her head gently. "Not everyone does what is right when no one is watching." The wind blew lightly through the grass. A meadowlark called from somewhere nearby. Aponi then turned to her horse and carefully lifted something wrapped in soft deerskin. She carried it with both hands, with the same care one might give to something precious. She stepped forward and held it out to Elijah. Elijah accepted it slowly, not rushing. He untied the wrap with respect. Inside was the most beautifully made bow Elijah had ever seen. The wood was polished smooth, shaped with great skill. The grip was wrapped in soft leather, and the limbs were carved with patterns that reminded him of flowing water and mountain clouds. Along with the bow was a quiver of arrows, each of them fletched with careful hands. The feathers were arranged with perfect balance, designed not just for beauty but for accuracy. Elijah understood immediately what this meant. This was not a trade. This was not payment. This was a gift of honor. Such a gift was given only when trust was deep and genuine. Aponi spoke again. "This bow belonged to my brother. He carried it with pride and skill. When I give this to you, I give you our respect. You are welcome among us. Your home is a place we hold with goodwill." The meaning of her words landed softly, yet strongly. Elijah felt the weight of the gift, not the physical weight, but the meaning behind it. To accept it carelessly would be wrong, so he bowed his head slightly, placing one hand gently over the bow, showing gratitude. "I am honored," he said quietly. "I will treat this with respect." The younger girl then stepped forward. In her hands she held a small strand of woven grass and beads. It was simple yet full of care. She held it up to Elijah with a bright expression. He knelt slightly so she could place it in his hand. It was a bracelet small enough to be tied around the wrist. He let her tie it. Her fingers were tiny and careful. When she finished, she smiled wide, as if she had given him something greater than the bow itself. And Elijah understood something important in that moment. Kindness, when given freely, often came back in forms one never expected. The group stayed a little longer. They talked and shared small friendly words. Aponi asked Elijah about his ranch, and he explained how he cared for the land and the animals. The older girl laughed when Willow nudged her shoulder. The younger girl tried to feed Willow a wildflower, and Willow accepted it gently. There was no barrier between them anymore. No dividing line. Just people sharing a moment of peace. After some time, Aponi and her daughters prepared to leave. Before mounting her horse, Aponi looked at Elijah once more. "Peace grows where people choose to plant it," she said. "You planted it yesterday. Now it grows here." Elijah nodded. "You will always be welcome here." The riders left quietly, moving back across the plains. Elijah watched until they became small shapes and then disappeared beyond the horizon. He returned to his cabin and carefully hung the bow inside, above the fireplace where the light from the window touched it each morning. It became the most meaningful object in his home. When people visited, they would sometimes ask where it came from. Elijah did not tell the story loudly or proudly. He simply spoke of it with calm respect. Over the years, word traveled gently across the land. Some settlers who had once spoken harshly began to speak more softly. Some Apache families who had once kept distance began to send greetings. Small acts of trust slowly connected the two sides, like threads woven into a strong and lasting cloth. It did not change everything all at once. Big changes rarely happen in a single day, but it changed enough. It changed the land around Elijah's ranch into a place where kindness was remembered. And every time Elijah looked at the bow, he remembered the same truth. Humanity is not measured by where someone is born or how they speak or what they wear. It is measured in the choices a person makes when others are in need. And that belief, carried with quiet courage, can change more than a single moment. It can change the path of many lives. If you want, I can now.